right, we're going to read what is considered one of the most appreciated poems, songs, however it can be described, compilation of verses, which chronicles some of the physical, which we refer to as Prakrita Lila of Bhaktisiddhānta, like his birth, where he was born, things like that, Prakrita Lila. And how many verses there are? 21? Mm-hmm. Yeah, 21 verses. And also chronicles his, what do you say, spiritual biography. Some of his material biography, a little of that, and his spiritual biography. Not really biography, but like a biography would be, oh, he went here on this day, he went there on that day, he wrote this book on this day, he did this on that. That'd be more like a biography. Well, that's not what this is. This is more about his mood and spiritual achievements on the subtle plane. His defeating the impersonalists, the hajiyas, speculators, things of that nature. So, but surprisingly enough, as far as I know, this gentleman who is named here Sri Gopal Govinda Mahant was not an initiated disciple of Bhaktisiddhānta. He was an admirer. Now this recalls to mind one incident, one statement of Śrīla Prabhupada, our Śrīla Prabhupada. It's recorded somewhere, I believe it is. He says that if one may not be able to participate in the Sankirtan movement, but if one can appreciate what the devotees of the Sankirtan movement are doing, that is qualification to go back to Godhead. Yeah. But nowadays the trend is has dropped off those types of considerations. It's kind of like the checkerboard. You're in, you're out. It's black and white. But the real, it seems to me that the real truth of spiritual progress, spiritual life, it isn't so black and white. In fact, the subtle considerations may override the material circumstances. But a problem arises in this, that it gives scope for all kinds of self-deception to enter in. Like once I had a young man on my Sankirtan party, myself and Vaiṣṇava Maharaja. He was during a class like this, and he was, we were in our motorhome, it was very small, so he was just sitting right there, and he was and I said, hey, we're discussing Bhagavatam here. Let's show a little life. And in those days, we used to use the expression "fired up." In other words, show me a little bit fired up. He said, "I don't look fired up, but I'm fired up within." So I said, "Well, I'll tell you what to do. You take your within, and you pack your bag, get on a bus, and go back to Chicago." So we can't use, and we should not use, and it's not proper to use the subtle considerations as as some sort of excuse for being in Maya, basically. But in reality, the subtle considerations are more valuable, more important to us. Once a gentleman that I once knew in Vrindavan, he said, someone was saying the pujaris, there's some pujaris, he was referring to another gentleman that I knew who was a meeting, a Goswami in Vrindavan, and he smokes bidis. He smokes bidis. And so that other gentleman said, Well, what is worse, smoking bidis or Vaiṣṇava aparādha? Generally, the Hare Krishna movement is not so really not strict at all about Ekadasi. Ekadasi, we don't take grains. Duh. That's it. Whereas a Smarta doesn't even take water on Ekadasi. Every Ekadasi is a Nirjara Ekadasi. They don't take water. Similarly, there are many Mayavadis and Personalists, followers of Shankaracharya. Oh, they follow such a strict Ekadasi, very strict Ekadasi. But in the ultimate issue, they want to merge and become Krishna, or they say there is no Krishna, and the Brahman is the ultimate reality, pure, unadulterated light, and all personality is subject to the influence of Maya. But they're very, very strict on their Ekadasi. Similarly, there are what we consider, we call this Hajiyas and Govardhan. They do Govardhan Parikram, which is something like 14 kilometers walk every day, and chant 64 rounds before they eat, or honor prasadam, so-called honor prasadam. Similarly, there was another devotee in Prabhupada's time. He chanted 120 rounds a day. 120 rounds a day. And he wanted to live in a tree. And so many, exaggerated practices. He was the next Marine. And he was very physically strong. So wake up at 2 o'clock, power out, chanting, all austerity and math. But it was very clear one day that Prabhupada was not pleased. You can take a chair if anybody needs a chair in the back. He was not pleased by these things. And he said, as soon as we say, I want, that is Maya. And the I wants, at that time in the greater institution, was insane. I want silk kurtas, I want shiny sandalwood buttons, I want to do this, I want to do that. You see? But the I wanted was, wow, he wants to chant 120 rounds a day. Wow. He doesn't want to take prasadam except once a day, whatever is left over. At the end, at 9 o'clock at night, this devotee would go to the prasadam hall. If something is there to eat at 9 o'clock, he'd take prasadam. Nothing's there to eat, he'd go back. And he'd worship Tulsi twice a day. And Prabhupada considered all of that Maya. What is Maya? Maya means illusion. He was not satisfied with that. He was not pleased with that. That devotee wanted to live in a tree. He told Prabhupada, first, he lived in a grass hut in the banana grove somewhere near where the ISKCON Gurukul is in Mayapur today. Then he moved out to the bank of the Jalangi. And then one day in a darshan with Śrīla Prabhupada, he said, oh, Prabhupada, I want to live in a tree. I want to move in a tree. Meanwhile, Prabhupada was building his project at Mayapur, and he wasn't just building a temple. In fact, he wasn't building a temple at all. There was no temple in Mayapur. There was a temple room, a room in a building. From what he was building, at the time was the longest building in Bengal, which was residence for the devotees. All the money in an institution, spiritual institution, bona fide spiritual institution, is actually the property of the Guru. Property of Krishna, but who is Krishna's first representative amongst us is our Guru. So all the property, all the money, everything in the whole institution actually belongs to the Guru. In the Griha, that's something different. But inside the institution, everything belongs to Krishna, and his walking, talking man here on earth is the Guru of the institution. Otherwise, the deity is not going to go, hey, that's mine. Won't do that. You steal something from the Guru, from the deity will just stand there. But the Guru may chase you with a stick. Understand? So, they're probably building this largest building in Bengal, longest building in Bengal, But what it was accommodation for devotees. Hundreds of rooms, hundreds, not 10, not 2, hundreds of rooms for the devotees. In those days, 1,000 devotees used to come to Mayapur for the festival, and everyone was Prabhupada's disciple. Now, if you go to a Mayapur festival, if you can count 10 or 20 Prabhupada disciples, you were lucky. And it's only been 30-something years, almost 40 years. Where did the thousands go? Well, that's another story. But the point is that this person was doing many severe austerities and big-time sadhana. Huh? Can you think, even chanting 120 rounds a day, you know how long that takes? It takes about 20 hours. That means you are just constant. If I tried that, my tongue would just turn in time, go into a knot, and I'd choke to death probably. But he could do such things. But Prabhupada wasn't pleased, because the subtle side of the devotion, we're referring to it as the subtle side, was not properly motivated. What should be the proper motivation? To please. A servant's motivation is to please. The Sri Vaiṣṇavas have published one book in the modern market. It's called Slaves of the Lord. Ooh, slavery. Śrīla Mahārāja has a lecture, Slavery, the highest freedom. Highest freedom? Slavery? Generally when we hear of slavery, it's like, oh, very bad. Such and such. They try to say, oh, the Egyptians built their pyramids with slaves. All this talk about slavery, very, very bad. Why is it? Is slavery such a bad thing? Depends on who your master is, doesn't it? Slavery to Krishna is the highest freedom. No more birth and death. That is freedom. Here, nobody is free. Nobody in this world is free. No creature is free. Some people say, oh, I'd like to be like the bird and fly in the sky. Yeah, right. Until a big old eagle swoops down on you and chomps you right out of the sky. They're not free. They're in fear. Look at these peacocks. They come every morning and just open my door. They just take off running. Oh, because they're so happy they just want to run? No, because they're afraid. They're in fear. No one is free in this world. But in order to convince you you are free, there's all this talk about, oh, slavery. Yes, we don't want to be slaves in the material sense, but in the spiritual sense, slavery is the highest freedom. And that is freedom from the birth and death of this world when we surrender to Krishna. And slave means you live for the master. A job, you don't live for the master. That's all the time. Hey, that's not my job description. This is what you hear in the corporation. That's not my job description. I didn't sign up for this. So Śrīla Śrīdhara Mahārāja says, if you go to somewhere and they flatter you and they shower all kinds of praises upon you, but they don't deliver you the truth, then you should never return there again. However, if you go to where you are being given the truth and they daily beat you with shoes, you should come back again and again and again. So, of course, those who are delivering the truth, they generally don't have the habit to beat their listeners with shoes or any such thing. But he's making this bombastic statement to attack our petty self-interest that we think is so important, somewhere in the 80s, this thing about young people would say, how did they phrase that? I need to experience the most out of my life. And I'm like, your life, really? Do you have a contract? Do you have a serial number stamped in the back of your head that, you had anything to do with your life? You had nothing to say. You didn't pick your parents. You didn't pick your nationality. You don't pick what happens to you in the day. Really, you try your best, but so many things interfere. What do you mean, your life? This is your life, and you'll turn it on, turn it off when you want. Oh, it's not your life. Life is not in your hand. Life is a gift. It's a gift. It's to give a gift to give us the opportunity to realize who we are and our relationship with Krishna. It is not ours, not even your, what we call your life. It's not yours. Can you understand that? Mm-hmm. You have it, you're living it, but it's not yours. It can be taken away, just like this, in an accident, in a war, or so many things, by disease. This, your life, that's for you. And when you die, and everyone comes, well, that's natural. That's natural. And that's another thing. Death is not natural. It is unnatural. Very unnatural. It's the number one enemy of life. Nobody wants to die. Not any sane person. Though people become so disappointed in life and so disinterested in life, particularly many people in old age. Why? Due to disappointment. Their spouses died, their children died, they lost their fortune in the stock market. Oh, Trump became president. They're ready to die, right? They're ready to die. But no sane person wants to die. That is insane. So we want to live. And that is natural. I want to live. An insect, an ant, comes across here. I'll be sitting here, and a big ant will be walking across here, and I'll sometimes come up to him with my finger. He just turns around and runs, right? He wants to live also. Life is natural. We pursue life. Whoever pursues death is a madman, crazy. So death is unnatural. We're told it's natural. No, it is not natural. It's very unnatural. And while living, we should strive for that plane of life where death cannot catch us. No. I'll spend my time avoiding taxes. People spend hours and hours hiding their black money, avoiding taxes. You see, they think that taxes is the only thing that's after them. Their money. What is this money? What is it? How much money do we have? We don't have any money. We just got this smelly paper. But if you got new notes now, and they're nice and clean, you can even wash them. Right? You can't get any of them. Right? Nobody has any money. Real money is gold, silver. That is, in this world, that is Lakshmi. That is wealth. But this paper, what paper is? Trees. And it's simply printed.
It's a bill.
And it's nothing but a bill. It's an IOU. It's a fraud. So back to Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta. He said, long before the only means of broadcast communication between people in a country around the world, there were newspapers, and the biggest thing going was radio. When's the last time you listened to the radio? Last time I was in a museum. Some people think that, the kids are born and, little kids, they get to thinking the iPhone's always been there, I had a young man once from Bengal ask, Maharaj, when we were in South India, he's a devotee, he said, Maharaj, when Mahaprabhu came to South India, he came by bus and train. That is, Baba, he had his own car. He was serious. He's in this world with buses and trains and not very educated, and he just assumed that this has always been there. This little thing laying on the floor is some sort of a recorder. He used to call them tape recorders because it was tape in. Do you know how big the first home, ownable, personal tape recorder was? Yeah, it was about this wide, stood about this tall, and had two big reels spinning on it, with tape on it and a microphone. That was a tape recorder. That was a tape recorder. Oh, it's a little bitty thing. But those are all gone. And you don't see those. So people assume, very inaccurately, many things about life. And so this brings to mind this saying, before this mass internet communication and these types of things, and WhatsApp, instantly I can talk to Jayadev, we could just put him on here, maybe WhatsApp, and we call it Skype this meeting or something like that. And he's on the other side of the world or anywhere in the world, and he can see that. And so then we can know what's going on. Well, before that was possible, Bhaktisiddhānta said something. And probably a lot of people kind of like, what? He said, this world is composed of two things, cheaters and cheated. And now, more than ever before, people have the knowledge to understand how that is so. There's so much cheating in the world. Your education. In the West, they start the children, they tell them there's this big fat man who wears a red suit, has a big white beard, and ho, spends the whole year making toys in the North Pole, and he comes around in the middle of the night on December 24th and gets into your house by coming down the chimney. Now, usually kids are pretty smart. But how'd that fat man get down that little hole? Well, they say he has a mantra. He holds his nose, kind of pranayama, goes down and goes back up the chimney. And so the night that he's coming, they cook some cookies and they make some milk, and all the kids go to bed and they put it out there. And then Dad gets up about 1 o'clock and goes out, eats a couple cookies, drinks half the milk, puts all the presents for the kids and all the toys out here, goes back to sleep. And the kids wake up, and wow, Santa was here! And they run out there, and wow, he left 2 cookies in there, and everything like that. And then when they get about 6 to 7 years old, they say, hey, kid, wise up. There is no Santa Claus. Kids are traumatized. They cry. Some of them go, I figured that out. When I told my sister, who I'm 9 years older, there is no Santa Claus, I got a beating for that. And then there's, of course, the Easter Bunny. And again, kids are usually pretty smart, but they never connected the dots. What's the rabbit got to do with eggs? Rabbits don't lay eggs, do they? I don't think they lay eggs. So what's this rabbit got to do with anything, really? They're cheated. Now, in certain places, progressive places, so-called, but people are realizing that what the heck is this? They're trying to make laws that parents can't tell their children that Santa Claus is a real person. Now, I have a picture of myself sitting with Santa Claus. I think I'm about 5 or 6, and I'm sitting on Santa Claus's lap, and they're doing the picture for the family album. And I'm like looking at my parents like, what's this all about? I can tell this is a false beard. Who is this guy? This is the guy who comes down the chimney? I don't think so. We just saw him in this store, and then we drive a few kilometers going, there's a fat guy again. So I was like suspicious of that thing, but generally we all believe that. So they're trying to pass a bill, they call it a bill, law, that you can't tell children about Santa Claus. So basically, I think it's really good. Why you should bring someone into this world and condition them to illusion and then pop their bubble. It's just like, what's the point? Why not tell them about Krishna? He's much more beautiful than this Santa Claus who's got bad breath. If you've ever been near any of them, you get all these alcoholics that come in. Play Santa for a couple bucks an hour. They got nicotine stains on their finger, alcohol. There's probably a lot of pedophiles out there getting Santa Claus jobs too. So it's probably a good idea. What? Because it's the culture of illusion. It's the culture of the cheaters and the cheated. So that, of course, the individual and, of course, the Shastra. These two things is where we will find the truth. And someone like Bhaktisiddhānta and a highly elevated personality, personalities can look at a situation and see the truth. So where was he? In Bengal. I don't know that he ever went beyond. I mean, India, he never went anywhere. But he saw the British. He saw the educational system. He went through the educational system. At the same time, he is studying Vedic Shastra. We say Vedic, but the Shastra in Goswami literature. And he can see this world is made of two things. People who are cheated, that's almost everybody, and the cheaters, whoever they are. The shopkeeper says, for you I make no profit. And the government says, and the politicians, they say just about anything. For the vote or to distract the people. So nowadays, even the common people can see. They say, wake up and see how much they are being cheated. But the most important thing that they are cheated from, they still have no idea. I met years ago some Gurukul. They call them Gurukulis. They were 40 years old. You know, it's like Gurukuli means a little kid going to the school in the ashram of the guru. That's a Gurukuli. And here are these 40-year-old, 35-year-old adults calling themselves Gurukulis. You know, so that's probably an issue within itself. They were all in an outrage. They felt cheated because. But the main thing they were cheated out of, they had still no idea how they were cheated, what they were cheated from. The most important thing in life, they were cheated out of. And they were cheated on many other little things, and they are all in outrage about that. But the most important thing, which they were cheated out of, which is Krishna consciousness, and well, particularly the guidance of Śrīla Śrīdhara Mahārāja, which every one of these little kids could have grown up with. And we're seeing now, many, many years later, some of these Gurukulis, these older people and people who came after them, slowly, well, I don't know if it's so slowly, but quite a few of them are discovering that great wealth which was denied to them. So anyway, I was remembering that, the cheaters and the cheated, and how exceptional vision and understanding Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta had about this world. So those who are in Maya, they cannot understand Maya. The president-elect in the United States, Mr. Donald Trump, wrote a book called The Deal. And it's all about business and how to close the deal, make the best deal. Well, what deal? Another cheating business, the so-called deal. Simply money. How to secure more money that you can leave to your children when you die. Wow, that's something super. But the real purpose of life, that is this. And he is also cheated. And who are cheated, paramparā become cheater. The cheaters are also cheated. Who are cheating the people, they're also cheated. They're not gaining. In fact, it would probably be better to be cheated in this life. And you'll get this much bad karma because you didn't know how to live life, you did all these wrong things, and you'll get this much bad karma. The cheater on the other side, for example, the president of a country or the king of a country, they get 20% of your karma, your karma, your karma, your karma, your karma, your karma. Can you imagine if I had 20% of your wealth? It doesn't matter how poor you are. They'll take 20%, 20%, 20% of everybody in their country, how rich they would be. But they don't get 20% of their wealth. They get 20%. Or 50, what is it?
20%, I think.
20% of their karma. Every person, they get 20% of that. So the cheater who cheats the individual gets his karma. Not her karma, not her karma, not his karma, your karma. That's it. You get yours. But there's what's called collective karma. Because we agree to do certain things in a country or in a group, then that whole region will also get a karma, and we'll all share in that because we did it together. Cheaters and the cheater. But the cheater, he will be punished more. He will be punished more. Punished in the sense of karma. There are many videos online now called instant karma. They're usually about bullies and people trying to do something, and then it just backfires and they get pummeled, beat up, knocked off their motorcycle, pie in the face. It's called instant karma. You look it up sometimes. Some of it is quite hilarious. But people are, a little bit socially aware that action and reaction. You do something and something comes back, they're calling that karma. Well, yeah, that's true. Some instant reaction is there. Karma means reaction. So the biggest reaction will go to the cheater. Understand? All right, so now let's hear something more pleasant. And Gary's going to read these translations, and we'll see. I might say something, maybe not. And then let's watch the time. Let's go about, say, 15, 20 minutes from now. I don't think that we'll get through all of these. But since these are in our songbook, just this song, the thousands of devotees around the world are deprived of this. They're deprived of this. Deprived of this means they don't know it exists. They have no access to it. I would say severely cheated. Okay.
Here's the translation.
Well, it's a beautiful song. One other thing I want to say is this song. There's a song in here in regards to our Śrīla Prabhupada, the Prabhupada Līla Smarana Mangala Stotra. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This song inspired that song. And when Nandan Swami was requested to take our English verses and translate them into Bengali, I requested him to do it in the meter of this song. And so our Prabhupada Mangala Stotram is in the same meter. So it's quite beautiful meter. All right, so I'm a bad singer, so we won't torture you with that.
All glories to His Divine Grace, Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Mahārāja, the Paramahamsa, the supremely merciful and the ultimate refuge for the lowly and fallen.
There's a couple things in my head I have to say. The gentleman who wrote this, bear in mind, he was not an initiated disciple of Bhaktisiddhānta. He was an admirer and what you might call a follower. So recently I've had a very awkward experience in the Vaiṣṇava world. I had many meetings, let's say if I put the various trips to Vrindavan together, practically every trip to Vrindavan, I'm meeting some person of status inside of this company. Either a sannyasi, an older Prabhupada disciple, or even gurus. Both men and women, but mostly the men. It means Prabhupada older disciples, and even second generation devotees who have responsible positions. Once in all these years, I met with one of the main leaders of the Rithviks. Now we all know what the Rithvik idea is. So I started thinking over time that Well, I wrote an article, Ritvik, the 14th sampradāya or something like this, and I still stand to that. But I had to consider, these people are trying to follow Prabhupada. And they are also what? They are also appreciating Prabhupada. You see? So I had to say, and I started saying, I said, yes, we do not subscribe to their methodology or their so-called philosophy, but I have to concede that they're trying to follow, or you can say they are followers, but they are not following correctly or perfectly everything, but they're trying to follow. But then I met the head, probably you could say almost the head of, particularly in India, the Ritvik movement, who have the biggest temples, unbelievable wealth that they have. What's our project cost? I mean, I don't know, a few $100, few $1,000s. They gauge their project in hundreds of crores. They're building in Vrindavan the tallest temple in the world, 700 to 1,000 crores. In Mayapur, right here in Mysore, they're going to build some huge monstrosity. Well, back in ISKCON, they were taught to believe that might makes right. Wealth, numbers, volume, that is the measure of Krishna consciousness. That is the proof. So they're so locked in. Convincing them that they're doing the wrong things, almost impossible. Almost impossible. However, I found more life, more congenial attitude, more respect, and almost everything right except one or two smaller points, or big points, of course. In other words, and I told this gentleman when we started that Śrīla Puri Maharaj told us, and Śrīla Puri Maharaj, a very exalted Vaiṣṇava with 100 years, more than 100 years of living, and all but about 15 of it in Krishna consciousness. And he says, Ritvik is the death of the sampradāya. And I'm not budging. But in the end, I had to write others and say, I found more life in him than I did in all of them put together. So here's that example. The follower with some genuine appreciation is there. But, why this man was never initiated, I don't know. If he was from the West, I'd probably say, well, he probably had some bad habits and knew his limits, but he had a great appreciation for Bhaktisiddhānta. But I can't judge this person because I know absolutely nothing about him, except he's not an initiated disciple. But all the disciples of Bhaktisiddhānta adore this song. So therefore, it's not just a material thing for him to even observe the things that are mentioned in here. He himself has to have some level of acceptable Krishna consciousness and not just mediocre. Whereas this other group, sannyasis, gurus, devotees with 40 years in the mission or more, things like that, I found no life in them. And it wasn't just me, there were other devotees. I think you were there on one occasion, right? Madhamar's, other people saw us just like talking to zombies, talking to them. And that is Vaiṣṇava aparādha. They're coated thick in the covering of Vaiṣṇava aparādha. And trying to convince them of the littlest valuable point in Śrīla Śrīdhara Mahārāja is like water off a duck's back, The ducks don't really get wet. The water just gets off of it, right? It's an expression. Water off a duck's back. It means it doesn't stick in one ear and out the other ear. But many of the younger people, they don't bear that coating, that Vaiṣṇava aparādha. And we have some statements from disciples of different gurus in ISKCON who are adamant leaders of this, stranglehold over the Krishna consciousness movement, even their disciples, because they don't have Vaiṣṇava aparādha. We've seen that they are appreciating Śrīla Śrīdhara Mahārāja. And not just appreciating, they are enthused by what they find in his books and what they hear about the relation of Prabhupada and Śrīla Śrīdhara Mahārāja. Like our devotees who recently joined us in Vermont. They had looked and they had heard so much stuff. Just like, is it supposed to be like this? The relations? And they come to hear about the relation between Prabhupada and Śrīla Mahārāja, and it's like, yes, this is Vaiṣṇava relationship. This is how it should be. And so they're encouraged, they're inspired. And I guess we could share that with everybody. 2 matas, one from one guru in ISKCON, another one from a different guru in ISKCON. They wrote 2 letters to this one guru. Both were disciples. They wrote, each one of them wrote a letter to the guru explaining their divine inspiration, which comes from the association of Śrīdhara Mahārāja's disciples and Śrīdhara Mahārāja's books. And I'm telling you, I wrote back and said, Mata for Acharya. That's what I said. I said, scrap these other guys, make these 2 women the Acharyas of ISKCON, they'll make progress. Yeah. So, did I send you those mails?
One of them did.
One. The other one was kind of reiterating the same thing.
I didn't.
Very, very long. Very long letters.
Substantial as well.
Wow. That's what I'm talking about. Like, yes.
And young, not all the older lady.
No, these were not senior Vaishnavis. I don't know, maybe 5-10 years in the movement or something like that. And you could see why, because they're not tainted by this Vaishnava thing.
Can you send it to me now?
I will share it with everybody. I'll send it to you, of course. So, I don't know, I see some of these things and really it almost makes me angry. Not angry, but
Disappointed.
yeah, like the horse. Exasperated, that's the word. In English means, what can I do? What we can say.
Having appeared in Nilachala, you came to Sri Gaur Mandala and demolished the conditioned soul's fear of this material world by revealing the treasure of divine love. I have no ability to sing your glories, but can do so only if you empower me. For the welfare of this world, you're entirely engaged in practicing and preaching unadulterated devotional service in the line of Sri Rūpa Gosvāmī.
So, this gentleman is paid acute attention. Now, if you ask most people in the world, probably, yes, Prabhupada is spreading Krishna consciousness. It's like, that's very broad. Like, Prabhupada is taking us back to the spiritual world. Which part? That's a big place, the spiritual world. There's a lot of locus standi there. There's a lot of positions there. Oh, they're all not the same. Which one? You will never hear this from them. He has spread Krishna consciousness in the line of Rūpa Gosvāmī. You will never hear those words out of their mouth, ever. But in peace, maybe, something, they will say, oh, Rūpa Gosvāmī was the first Prabhupada. No, this is not true. We have an article in our book, and as far as is concerned, God himself is the first Prabhupada. And Prabhupada is, is it one of the Vishnu Sahasrama? No. But sometime, I can't remember now. There's some other little point. But Mahaprabhu himself in Chaitanya Charitamrita is discussed and referred to as Prabhupada. There are many masters. And he was a master of many masters. Now, of course, we refer to our spiritual master as Prabhupada, but it was kind of like, who are the masters that he's in charge of? So it could be looked at as a self-glorification. Understand?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he's a master of many masters. Well, sitting in front of you were a bunch of hippies. And other, as Hillary Clinton would call them, deplorables and irredeemables. Not many masters, but in Bhaktisiddhānta, when lots and lots of his disciples, they didn't come in and have to be taught what hand to eat with, which hand to clean yourself with, how to wash your mouth, and how to dress, or how to put on clothes. These people came in. Some of them already knew Sanskrit, studied Vedanta. Dr. O.B.L. Kapoor had a PhD in Vedanta Sutra before he even met Bhaktisiddhānta. So these were not hippies. These were not dropouts from society. These were the old school, spiritually cultured people of India. Not just one or two. Quite a few. They weren't deplorables, irredeemables, and everything like this. So, So sometimes we say, yes, this glorification of our Śrīla Prabhupada turns out to be a self-glorification. Keeping him up as like a shield, putting him in, like the Christians, put the cross on the shield and you will win victory in battle. So there's a little bit of this there. And almost no interest in Prabhupada before he came to America. Well, what does that say? That says he's great after he met me. After he met us, then he becomes great. Take away us, he's not so great. How's that possible? That we have nothing to do with his greatness at all. But we're thankful for that because it has helped many of us to come to the proper standard of human life and spiritual life also.
Right. In you, I find the good qualities of Śrīla Narasingha, who purified the sacred land of Ketari. I marvel to hear from you the essence of scriptural conclusions presented so irrefutably to false magicians and speculators. Men are afraid to see the principles of pure devotional service eclipsed by pseudo-religions. But you, by expertly shooting the arrows of genuine scriptural conclusions, have torn asunder such pseudo-religions, and they have brought joy to the saintly. On reflecting that the sunshine of pure devotion was getting shrouded by the clouds of smarter doctrines, you churned the ocean of Vedic scriptures, raised a mighty tempest of bona fide Siddhanta, and blew those clouds far away.
He blew away. So these were progressives, right? Cheaters and the cheated, and Sarasvatī Ṭhākura, he says, and you blew them away. That's good. Hey, what is the Bengali there for blew them away?
Digantare.
Digantari.
Yeah. It literally means sent to the fourth a different direction.
Cool more.
Yeah.
What happened? He got Digantari. What do they say? He got juggernauted, or Coventrated.
Yeah.
After
he was sent to Coventry, yeah.
Yeah. No. They bombed Coventry into oblivion one night in World War II. And thus the Germans then had an expression. What happened in some other place? They were Coventrated. It means totally wiped out. Remember this word. Okay.
You have founded so many monks in different places with no motive to cheat, but to teach the conditioned beings how to serve the Lord with love. The Vaiṣṇavas of these monks are constantly distributing the nectarian words of the divine qualities of Lord Hari in this material world. You brought us the clear currents of the Mandakini river of pure devotion and cooled our lives, feverish with material woes. You have set Vaishnavas, devoid of material possessions, to diverse lands for propagating the songs eulogizing Lord Hari. Just as in the past Lord Gaurahari had pricked the bubble of Mayavad and converted the inhabitants of Varanasi to Vaishnavism, You too, by means of your expert analysis of the subtle Vaishnava philosophy, have enraptured all in Varanasi. You've determined on the basis of scriptural evidence the principles of that Vedic Varanashram, the import of which is devotion to Lord Hari. It is you who explain this that knowledge, yoga and activities, if averse to bhakti, have absolutely no value.
Not that, Yoga Maya? Yoga. Now, nowadays yoga is very popular, and it didn't just start now. Many years ago, yoga was the calling card in China. There was no preaching in China, only yoga. With your shoes on, by the way. Because Chinese don't take their shoes off in public, just unless they get a foot massage in a foot massage shop.
Mhm.
So the devotees would go out in the street on a run like this, and they would do yoga. They'd do asanas. And not just any devotees, there's some very good devotees who are very good and trained in the system, and but with their shoes on. And the poster that they used for advertising, it was a man in a white shirt with a tie, and a pair of two pleated slacks with a crease down the center, wearing a pair of leather shoes, sitting in Padmasana with leather shoes. Because, some guy with his bare feet hanging out, not going to sell in yoga, in China. However, yoga, these things like asana and others, without bhakti, have pretty much no spiritual value. Well, I was discussing with a friend, Janti Rose, who's a sportsman, and his wife, South Africa. And I was kind of being a little bit critical of the modern yoga system and the yoga shalas and everybody, the payment system and all this kind of thing. Did you see that recently? The biggest yoga teacher in the world was murdered in his home. In, where's that, Malibu, or where was it?
San Diego.
San Diego. There's you want to San Diego, watch out. There's murderers there. Big business. Big business. He had hundreds of yoga shalas around the world or something, or 100 or something like this. Big business, very wealthy. Biggest, most wealthy. This other guy, hot yoga also. That guy's in court, sex scandals, nonsense, business. In this fashion, yoga is absolutely useless. But Janti's wife, I forget her name right now, she said, well, this is kind of waking people up a bit, and it's true, that even in the class of the cheaters, people sometimes get a little bit of awakening in what they're doing, and it kind of perks a little bit. But if overall, it's a big cheating business. The spiritual value of what people actually achieve is so minute. You join a Krishna consciousness community in the Western world. In India, we don't go the same route, but in the Western world, the first thing they tell you is you're not that body, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Krishna is a supreme person, and you're not the body. The body's made of bones, and muscle, and tendons, and all kind of long list of yucky things. Mm-hmm. And I say, oh, that lady has such a beautiful shape, look at beautiful hair. And then she serves you lunch and there's a long blonde hair in your kitchen. It's like, ugh. Well, she's such a beautiful lady with a beautiful hair and you got some in your kitchen. Why do you go, You separate any piece of this beauty off to the side. So how can somebody create beauty? If hair is that. If, piece of skin on your plate. Oh, there's some skin on my plate. That's just another piece of beauty, I don't think the new devotees know the story of liquid beauty. Prabhupada wrote the play, Liquid Beauty. That's a good one. Taken together, because taken together, it houses a soul. A soul. There's the source of life. There's the source of effulgence. There's the source of beauty. But that wanes. Wrinkles come and people have to kind of patch up, Botox, and cheer up the face, all this kind of stuff. And most people, because they identify with the body, when the body ages and it's all like this, their mind gets like this also, because they think that's them. But liberated souls, first stage of liberation, you're not the body. You grasp that, that's the first step in liberation. Second step, Krishna's Supreme Person. And vice versa. In India, many Hindus worship Krishna, worship Vishnu, and still think they're that body. Because there's no real preaching going on in this country. Like this fool over here in the chili homes, who does these big yagis. Hundreds of people come, and they throw chilies into the fire. The fire is the mouth of Vishnu. They're throwing chilies into the fire, and then they throw their clothes and garbage into the Kaveri. And it's so spiritual. It's such a great thing going on over there. It's completely bogus. Now I lost my particular point there.
You heard about the preaching in the West. Yoga, you're talking yoga?
Yeah, so here's the point that yoga without bhakti, without devotion, and not devotion just to the cause of just doing your yoga. Devotion to what you do. Like people have devotion to their job, they have devotion to the military, the flag. This is not real devotion. But they have some dedication to that. But this is misguided devotion. This is not where devotion wants to connect. Devotion is meant for the Supreme. And yoga without devotion has no real spiritual value. So it's important when you to have Krishna's backing, that not in a fanatical sense, but it's important that when teaching people even the Ashtanga system, that they be informed, at least they can make the choice to accept it or believe it, however you want to look at that, that they're not the body. That the body is our car. Keep it oiled, keep it gassed up, keep it clean, windshield clean, maintain the body. Asana is just this one simple, itsy, witsy, bitsy, teeny, weeny part of the yoga system. That's it. It's this teeny thing, and it's become the calling card of yoga. This is yoga, yoga, yoga. Yoga means, the word means to link to the Supreme. So it should be, bear these things in mind. We shouldn't be afraid in any sense to preach. Yoga might be a lot closer to the truth than, say, surfing. But at the surf ashram, we had amazing success with people. And if we had a little bit more experienced preachers there, it could even be more enlightening for people. So just bear that in mind. Read that one part again.
You have determined, on the basis of scriptural evidence, the principles of Vedic Varnashram, the import of which is devotion to Lord Hari. It is you who explain that knowledge, yoga and activities, if averse to bhakti, are of absolutely no value.
So, you understand that? Mm-hmm. All right. I'll tell you one more thing. I think I already told this before. One morning, I believe it was in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, long back, Prabhupada was on a walk, several devotees with him. He sees over there somebody had put out a blanket, or they're just over there on the art, and they're doing some asanas. And Prabhupada sees that person, he stops and he asks one of the devotees, what is that young man doing? And they said, he's doing yoga. He's doing yoga. And I said, is that one of our men? And is that one of our men? He said, no, Prabhupada, that's not one of our men. Our men would not do that. And Prabhupada said, yeah, so our men are all too lazy. So, yeah. All right. Moving on.
You have achieved an exemplary feat by circumambulating the holy land of Sri Gaur Mandala in the association of devotees. This hallowed land, no different from Braja and resplendent with divine love, received publicity around the globe.
Wow. Who would have heard of Vandanā from the voices of India had it not been for Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta to send his devotees to the West? Oh, which includes Prabhupada. And Prabhupada didn't invent the idea one day himself. You know, I'm going out of the box. I'm going to New York. No, he got an instruction, a general instruction and some specific instruction. The West and English, because what? They're ruling the world. And that is the language that is spoken everywhere in the world. If you know Spanish, you can go to so many countries. And if you know Portuguese, quite a few less. And if you know Swahili, one country. But if you know English, you go anywhere in the world and people speak. Almost anywhere in the world. I traveled African countries, African villages, and people spoke English. Of course, you could go to somewhere and they'll only speak French, you know, French Guyana or something like this. But even in those places, French Quebec, they speak French. But they also speak English. So, but if you speak French, then you cannot make it in so many countries in the world. Understand? So he gave, and it was because of him. It wasn't because of Prabhupada that our Guru Maharaj decided one day we should preach in English. This all comes from Bhaktisiddhānta. Now, what I tried to find this morning in the folder, I couldn't get into it. It's such a small print. There are only 2 recorded lectures of Srila Prabhupada talking about the life of Bhaktisiddhānta on this day. Twice. Twice only. Can you imagine? Twice only recorded, where he's telling biographical information and a little of the spiritual inspiration, instruction of Bhaktisiddhānta. Only 2 texts. So it is actually Bhaktisiddhānta. And Bhaktisiddhānta is doing everything on the word behest of who? Bhaktivinoda. Who wrote the first book in English, primarily, and sent it to the Western world. So the whole idea, go west, young man, preach this message of love of God throughout the world in the English language, comes from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. But many of the modern Vaishnavas fail to understand the origin. And a friend of mine, Śrīla Mahārāja, coined this word, bastard sampradāya. That's what they're trying to make, a bastard sampradāya. A bastard has no legitimate parents. Legitimate parents. Yeah, of course, they have parents. Has to have parents. But no legitimate parents. It's called a bastard. Born out of wedlock and all this. In the old school, they called that a bastard. So they're trying to make a bastard sampradāya, as if it all began. Our A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami. It all began there. No, that's not where it began. It is a continuation of what is coming. But the firing shot, the shot heard around the world, there's this expression, the shot that nobody really heard, but they say the shot heard around the world goes back to Bhaktivinoda. It is the sending of the life and precepts of Sri Chaitanya to the Western world in English language. That book. And when our group, which used to include other sannyasis and everything, gradually separated into our own little groups. But when we first started, Śrīla Śrīdhara Mahārāja said, you should publish first this first book of Bhaktivinoda. So you're going to launch your mission to spread love of God, then go back to the beginning and secure your foundation. Secure the blessings. Secure the best wishes of Bhaktivinoda, because that's where it begins, the Mahārāja says. It does not begin in 1965. It begins way back before the 20th century began. What was the year? 18-something. He sent that book to McGill University. 18-something. 80s, 70s, or 80s. Not 90s.
The same year the Prabhupada was born.
Yeah, that's right. Same year Prabhupada was born, because that became a biographical point. Like, well, look at this. You know. Of course, there are a lot of people born on that day. Prabhupada was not the only person born in that year, surely, particularly in India. But of all the people born the same year that the first book was, he was the one who landed there first with that message. And he spoke about, he referred to his mission as the mission of Bhaktisiddhānta. He even referred to all of his disciples in early letters as being sent by Bhaktisiddhānta and actually being, did he say disciples or students? I think he said disciples. Now we'll look at that. Probably the Ritviks didn't see this, but if they did, they get really excited because we're all the disciples of Bhaktisiddhānta and they're all the disciples of Prabhupada. You know, they get excited by that type of thing. But what is he talking about? He's not talking about well, you're taking initiation, but you're actually Bhaktisiddhānta's disciple. No, he's saying that it's on his order that all this is happening. And it's on his potency that all of you have come here. Now that type of humility for an acharya is absolutely imperative. I once explained this or not explained it, but I explained it in a conversation with a godbrother who had quite many disciples. This vision that Prabhupada had. And he goes, well, that's unique. I said, no, that is not unique. Unique means out, like, wow, look at that flower. I've never seen that before. That's unique. Something that's just different than everything else. Oh, that's a unique vision. And only unique means, it's unique to Karnataka, something, a flower, or an animal, or a tradition, a food. It's unique to that place. So he said that this vision that Prabhupada has, it is unique. I said, no, it is not unique. It is fundamental to Guru Tattva. If you don't have that vision, you're not in the Guru Tattva. It's as simple as that. In other words, if you wanted to dramatize this, I should see all of you painted blue. Understand? Not in the normal. Like the normal is, oh, I made you devotees, or Madhumar made you devotees, or you made her devotee, or whatever. No. That's we're all just the hands of Bhaktisiddhānta and Bhaktivinoda, and now the hands of Prabhupada. Credit goes to our Guru. And if the Guru himself doesn't have that vision, that's unique. Uniquely off target. Understand? It's not unique. It is standard, and it's there in these early letters. You see. And things developed, and new visions took over. Right.
You have forgiven the offences of the demonic offenders of Kulia who have tortured you. Thereby, you proclaim to the world that those who constantly chant the name of Lord Hari should be tolerant like a tree.
We'll have to research this and talk about this another time, but he received particular opposition in Kulia, this place called Kulia. I'm not abreast of the whole thing.
That's when you had to change clothes with basic ones.
Oh, that was at that time?
Yes.
In the royal court?
In the royal court of the World Vaiṣṇava Association, you were adorned with the Patraraj title, head of the assembly. For the welfare of the world, you renounced all that you had and are engaged in the good of all. You are untiring in doing benevolence so that the conditioned souls receive the ultimate benediction of service to Lord Sri Krishna. They will then recuperate from the worldly disease, be enfranchised from the bondage of karma, and attain to the lotus feet of Lord Hari.
Would you read that again?
Yeah. You are untiring in doing benevolence so that the conditioned souls receive the ultimate benediction of service to Lord Sri Krishna. They would then recuperate from the worldly disease.
Oh, they would then?
Yeah.
Okay, I misread that.
Be enfranchised from the bondage of karma and attain to the lotus feet of Lord Hari. Since living entities are lost in the slumber of false attachments, you are sending the Gaudiya, messenger of the spiritual world, from door to awaken them. Arise, arise, O brethren, there is no time to be lost. Serve Krishna, they call out aloud. The nectarian verses.
Now, Gaudiya was the magazine or the newspaper?
Magazine.
Gaudiya
Monthly magazine.
And the daily newspaper?
Nadia Prakash.
Can you imagine producing a newspaper daily? A daily newspaper on Krishna consciousness? And you think we work hard. Imagine that. That means up all night. Or the day starting at 2 in the morning. They didn't have this, copy paste. Each letter had to be picked up with a piece of tweezers and laid in a line in reverse, mirror reverse, because when it gets printed, it comes out the opposite, right? And they made it, and now it wasn't some big 30-page newspaper, it was probably
It's 4 pages.
4 pages, like a folder, a tabloid kind of. That alone. If I said, look, I want one article produced out of this ashram every day. Whoa. And they made a newspaper. And then how long did it run? A few years, I think.
It went on for about, I think it was 11 years.
Wow. And Srila Puri Maharaj's position in that newspaper, I think, was significant. At one point, he was not a typesetter, but an editor. Right?
Yeah.
Editor of the, what's the name of it again?
Nadia Prakash.
Nadia Prakash. I've never actually seen a physical copy.
No, me neither.
Oh. Very interesting. Of course, that was the state-of-the-art newspaper. Also, Bhaktisiddhānta was the cause of the government establishing a telegraph office in Mayapur, because he received so much communication that running a runner from Krishnagar out, which is 15, 20 kilometers, out to Mayapur down a dirt road and delivering the telegram as they were duly bound, like twice a day sometime. So they just opened a telegraph office right down the road from the mud. And I don't think anybody else in that town ever got a telegram.
There was nobody else at the time.
Nobody else, it's just the mud area. But newspapers now are, in many parts of the world, they're an internet online experience. The physical thing is dying out. And it was, I think it was last year, year before last, India sent their last telegram. I knew that was coming sooner or later. When about 20 years ago, I sent a telegram from Trivandrum to Vrindavan and said, I'll be there in 3 days. 2 days after I got there, the telegram arrived. So, and then I thought, this is going to stop at some point.
The nectarian verses glorifying the infallible Lord Krishna, issuing from your lotus mouth, soothe our souls, dissipate ignorance and illusion, and rid our hearts of agony. O great soul, I am well aware that there is no trace of desire for fame in your heart. Your qualities, like an expert musician, take hold of the vina of my voice and make me speak, devoid of power over myself. I have heard from the saintly ones that the conditioned soul attains liberation upon glorifying the Vaiṣṇavas. He moreover develops Krishna Bhakti, makes his birth perfect, and crosses the material ocean with ease.
So this is what I was referring to earlier. Prabhupada said one may not be able to engage in the Sankirtan movement, but if one can appreciate those who are performing the Sankirtan, then that appreciation in itself is a qualification to go back.
It is on this account that I endeavor thus, like a dwarf aspiring to reach the moon in the sky. But since you take no offense, I trust you will pardon my flaws, fallen and unqualified as I am. Śrīla Bhaktivinoda, the dear associate of Sri Gauranga, and friend of the lowly and fallen, brought you, untarnished, full moon, to this earth to dispel the ignorance of Kali Yuga.
Read that one again.
Śrīla Bhaktivinoda, the dear associate of Sri Gauranga, and friend of the lowly and fallen, brought you, untarnished full moon, to this earth to dispel the ignorance of Kali Yuga.
So what he's referring to here is the more or less standard information in the biographical sketch of Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta that seeing the task in front of him, and Bhaktivinoda, virtually other than his family members, was virtually almost alone in his fight against Maya in this material world. Here in India, 100 and some years ago, of course there were other devotees, but most of them, particularly at that time, were in the unknown quarters and hidden, buried, dug into caves in the bank of the Ganges River and things like that. The Vaishnavas, you weren't going to meet one just going down to the market. There's a big book fair in Bangalore today, this week, a spiritual book fair. Every mission that exists here in Karnataka is there. I'm wondering if the Christians are there anyway. But there were, I think he said, 3 or 4 just ISKCON booths there. So they got different ISKCONs, And one of them spelled ISCON. Okay, that's another story. But yeah. So yeah. What was that point now? Oh yes. So Bhaktivinoda was alone, and seeing this undaunting task in front of him, or daunting task in front of him, he prayed to Lord Krishna, please send someone to help me. And that's what this is referring to. That it's Bhaktisiddhānta who brought, Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura who brought Bhaktisiddhānta to this world on the strength of his prayer. In a similar way, the Advaitacharya, seeing the situation of the world and the task facing the Vaishnava community even 500 years ago, let us speak of 400 years after, he worshipped Krishna and prayed to Krishna to descend himself. Messengers from Vrindavan, the green parrot. So that's what this is.
So please keep on incessantly showering your mercy, the nectar of divine love, and let all creatures be rejuvenated and ecstatic. May all men in this earth dance in Harinam Sankirtana. This alone is the prayer of Vaishnava Das.
But that's not his name, Vaishnava. That alone is a prayer of the servant of the Vaishnava. Das, das, das. Quite a beautiful composition, no? And when sung in Bengal by a real Bengali, with a Bengali accent, it's a beautiful song, very beautiful song. Jai. Śrīla Śrīdhara Sarasvatī Ṭhākura Prabhupāda ki jai. Vaiṣṇava ki jai.
Guru Maharaja ki jai.